Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the All-Star Wrestling Review for the 19th of April, 1980. And we continue our foray here. Certainly, we are going to go back to Smoky Mountain. Also going to add some Coliseum video stuff. Lots of cool stuff coming up should everything pan out. I also have a potential move plan, so that could get challenging, but we'll see where things go. In any event, this is the All-Star Wrestling Review for 1980. We've got nearly 1,800 options available for your listening pleasure. We are going to become the largest review series on YouTube of professional wrestling, old school, new school, and all points in between over the next several years. So join us for the ride. Subscribe, do all that good stuff. In any event, this is an interesting time in the WWE/F or WWWF at the time. Because so many changes are happening in terms of individuals who eventually will be part of the 1983-84 expansion. Even though it's a few years early, you can see that Vince Kennedy McMahon is putting people in place, or at least lining up people that he enjoys. You can see it in the commentary, or hear it in the commentary more accurately. As he goes forward, Ken Patera with the Grand Wizard defeat Mike Masters, 338 with a suplex. Patera, who has been to the Pan Am Games and the Olympics and all sorts of other fun, nifty things, manages to be a guy who is a pretty, reality-based individual and does a lot of kind of go-arounds in terms of basic things. Lots of punch kick, also use of power, obviously, being a Olympic athlete and a weightlifter and all of that. But also the Grand Wizard adds a bit of arrogance to him, and him getting towards Pat Patterson and the Intercontinental Championship becomes a thing. He holds on to headlocks for quite a while, and Masters is a little bit bulkier than your average enhancement talent, to say the very least, and he kind of manages to go there, kind of cranks up on him a little bit. Reverse choke by Patera, and he manages there to get things going and kind of chokes the man out to the best of his ability. Also, kind of takes him back with the back suplex along the way and does what he can where he can, and ultimately hits things going and goes for the pinfall, gets the pinfall, and a relatively quick victory. Then we move to the next in the series of matches. We move to the kind of process with Tory Camada with Fred Blassie defeating Manny Sissa, 331 with a drop kick followed by a splash. Tory Camada is promoted. I don't know the history, to be honest. This is not my wheelhouse of full experience in the area, so not completely sure about his history as a sumo wrestler, whether that's true or embellishment, but regardless, he's treated like a major star here, being paired with Blassie, known for the majority heels. He does have both a Japanese look and kind of that larger belly area, also wearing a bit of a, I'd say almost like a kimono type thing. Lots of punch kick, chops, and the like. Sissa is a relatively new individual, and again, the splash is pretty heavy, and he takes the man down also with a bit of a extra aggression. Tony Atlas talks about being inspired by the fans in an interview with Vince McMahon and his yellow jacket. Basically says there are times he doesn't want to go to the gym and the fans inspire him. He likes the level of competition in the area and is totally ready. Ken Patera interrupts, setting up a potential feud with Atlas around the clubs, Boston, Philadelphia, Providence, and the Garden maybe. But anyway, basically says, is he really powerful? Can he really lift? Atlas takes offense to this, and they kind of do a little bit of a mini pose down for a few seconds. Also, Patera gets in the face of Vince McMahon, but it's clear that they're setting up a program between these two individuals, either for house shows or television, unknown at the time. Andre the Giant and the Intercontinental Champion, Pat Patterson, defeats Jenny Rollins and Jose Estrada, 10-28. Andre pins Estrada with a boot to the face and a sit-down splash. After the bout, Bruno Sammartino interviews Andre and Patterson at ringside. Andre and Patterson talk at reasonable length about the idea of teaming together more often, but Patterson talks about how they're at different ends of the spectrum. Andre's all over the world and he's at the other end of the world, and that team doesn't necessarily happen as much as he'd like. Obviously, Pat Patterson as the Intercontinental Champion, the second most important singles champion behind Bob Backlund at the time. Andre gets in there and does a reverse chinlock and some other basic things. Nothing too intense, but also still manages to do what he can where he can. And Andre squashes the man in the corner, goes right at him pretty aggressively, and at the end of the day manages to do what he can to keep things going in his general direction. Andre, hits a couple of shots to the knee, and then Pat Patterson kind of hits um, a couple of moves there. Andre with the splash and all of that. Obviously, the heels cut off Pat Patterson. They're not going to cut Andre off with near the success of cutting Patterson off, but they do manage to do the cutoff on Patterson. The fact that this goes 10 minutes is probably unnecessary, but the stack up of the two heels in the corner, Andre taking over on two guys, and the basic power play is a pretty big deal. Andre with a big butt splash and the win for his team also excites them and the fans. Then we move to the next in the series of matches here, which turns into or ends up being another of a singles match. Pedro Morales returning. Obviously, he was champion in about 73 or so, so he's back after several years kind of being absent. Not that he hasn't been here at all during the time, but still coming back and being more of a force than he was or has been the last several years. Pedro Morales defeating Frank Williams via submission, Boston Crab 502. I will be completely honest and say I wasn't around at the time. Obviously, I wasn't even born yet here in 1980. I was born in 81. But I don't understand and have never understood outside of the ethnic draw what the draw was on Pedro Morales. He's a very basic wrestler, punch, kick, hammer locks upon occasion, but no major flashy moves, and really outside of being an impassioned promo who fires up, not exactly a great promo either, does manage to get a very basic win, does have good wrestling skills, chin locks, wrist locks, and the like, and again manages to win with the Boston Crab. Then we see Bruno wearing the same color jacket as Vince. Maybe they went to the same tailor for a day. Tony Atlas closes out the program with Mark Pole, 243. Atlas gets a side headlock, takes the man over a bit, hits a shoulder block here and there, and actually does get some power moves off. Hitting the military press, among other things, body slams and the like. Tony getting a victory with a headbutt, and ultimately taking himself to the next level in terms of influence in the area. And that is kind of where that lands. In any event, that is kind of, what it ends up being, and that will close this particular show. We'll be back with more right after this.